What is up, awesome peeps? Brent McCluskey here with Electrified Views, and today we are reviewing the Michael Blast Greaser electric bike. This thing is such a cool retro blast from the past, bobber, moto-inspired electric bike. It is a super smooth cruiser, really elongated wheelbase. Really excited to dive into the specs on this bike, but first, let's roll the B-roll.
Yeah.
All right, awesome peeps. Again, this is the Michael Blast Greaser electric bike, and whoo, this thing is fun to ride. Let me tell you, this is one of the coolest rides we have tested in a long time. Second bike we've tested from Michael Blast. They got a great retro kind of style going on with their stuff. This thing feels like an old bobber motorcycle, and it kind of rides like that too, just that elongated wheelbase. It's so stable and smooth. This one right here, the Greaser, starts for $2,199 USD for the 350 watt motor version, and then they've got a 500 watt motor version with a larger battery. I think that one runs for $2,999 USD. So this is in the upper, it's a higher price point. This is not an affordable e-bike by any measure. So just keep that in mind. This is definitely more of an expensive bike, but not too bad. They've got a 6-month comprehensive warranty on their bikes, 1 year for the electrical and 5 years for the frame. So pretty generous warranty overall when you factor all that stuff in. They do have free shipping, I believe, to the US, and they might have free shipping to Canada, and I think they also ship to a few other countries. When I was checking out, trying to actually, go to checkout on this and check all that stuff for you. I think it's Japan and maybe a few other countries. Having the free shipping though, that's a nice little perk. A lot of times companies will kind of tuck in shipping towards the end. Not like it's, they're trying to be sneaky, but sometimes that's just how they do it, and then it feels like, you're paying extra when you go to checkout because it's like, oh, it's an extra 300 bucks for shipping. Not the case with this bike. Also, when this does ship, it comes pretty much fully assembled. All I had to do was throw on the front handlebars, and that was it. Everything else was already installed. The tires are on, they have some air in them, the battery's like halfway charged. So if you wanted to, you could get this bike, unbox it, and go riding in probably about 5 to 10 minutes tops, which is very nice. One of the benefits too of having a bike almost fully assembled is everything's kind of pro-tuned from the factory. So specifically the derailleur is very nice. It's perfectly tuned. The brakes on this are perfectly tuned. There's no brake rub, there's no nothing. And that's a great benefit of having a fully assembled or almost fully assembled bike delivered to your door. Let's dive into the specs on the Greaser right here, starting at the back with the motor. This is going to be a 500 watt Bafang geared hub motor in the back with 80 newton-meters of torque. Peak wattage is going to be somewhere around 750, 900, something like that. 500 watts nominal brings this bike up to a top speed of, out of the box, top speed is 15 miles per hour with the throttle, which is right here on the left-hand side. Or it's going to be a cadence sensing pedal assist. It's going to be on the opposite side there. You can't really see it over here, but you can change your top speed pretty easily in the display. And electronically, you can boost the top speed up to 32 miles per hour, but really this motor kind of winds out at 25 miles per hour. So I'm gonna say the top speed for the Greaser is realistically 25 miles per hour. The motor just doesn't spin any faster than that. So the 25 mile per hour top speed though, you can reach that pretty easily with this motor. This thing is gonna do fine on hills. Anything besides like San Francisco hills, this bike will do fine with that. Now the cadence sensor, like I mentioned here, the cadence sensor is going to have a little bit of latency from the time that I start and stop pedaling to the time the motor actually activates and deactivates. Very common, you see it with all cadence sensors. Not really a big deal, but that's just kind of how those operate. So you'll start pedaling, half a second later, the motor will activate. You'll stop pedaling, half a second later, the motor deactivates. That's kind of how those work. The battery on this is housed inside this beautiful gas tank looking piece right here. So inside there is a 48 volt, 14.5 amp hour battery for max range of about 35 miles or so. And like we always say with max range, that is definitely an estimate. It could be less, it could be more depending on how you ride it. For me, my max ranges are always less because I use the throttle a lot and I typically am in very high pedal assist mode. because I want to go fast. That's like kind of the point for me for having an electric bike. I want to go faster than I normally would on an analog bike. So for me, my max range might be around 20 miles per hour or 20 miles. However, if I were to tone down the pedal assist, if I were to pedal continuously, 35 miles on a 14.5 amp hour battery, that's pretty realistic range there. Now you can charge a battery right from here. There's actually a charging port on the other side here. It's kind of difficult to see. It's really hidden. Let me see if I can turn this up for real quick. So yeah, charging port is right underneath there. Hopefully you guys can see it. So you can charge this thing right from, you can charge the battery while it's still inside, is basically what I'm saying. So you can remove the battery, you can take these pieces off, like these fairings, but it's not easy. So really the battery is removable, but it's not hot swappable. It does take a second to get that off. So the good news about that is it's nice and secure inside there. It's not very easy to steal. It's protected from the elements. It's not gonna get dust or debris. It should last longer because it's encased inside of there. So there are some benefits to that. Now the brakes on this bike are pretty sweet here. We've got Tektro Auriga hydraulic disc brakes, 180 millimeter rotor in the front and 160 millimeter rotor over there in the back on the other side of the bike. Stopping power on this is phenomenal. These are really good brakes, really powerful. And it's just something that I almost feel like you absolutely have to have this high quality of brakes on a bike that goes this fast. Or really, I mean, any electric bike, you're gonna need at least mechanical disc brakes, but it's nice to see hydraulic. So very glad to see that. Now, because they are hydraulic, it does mean I can adjust the resting position of the brake levers here if I want to. However, one thing about this bike is, and my only real gripe about it, is there's no motor inhibitors built in, okay? So that means that when I depress the brake levers, if the motor is activated, the brake levers do not cut power to the motor. So I can, for like a half a second, be fighting against the motor when I hit the brakes. That's one thing I'd like to see added on this bike, and really the only change I would probably make. And it looks like they've got already in the electrical system, I think these would go into the brake levers here for the motor inhibitors. But on this one, it doesn't appear that they have, like, I don't think there's any spot actually for this specific brake setup to put those in. So, you know, I don't know, what can you do? Not a huge deal, but if I'm being nitpicky, that's the only thing I'm really gonna kind of pick out on this bike right here. For the derailleur on this, we're gonna have a Shimano Altus derailleur. Again, nice little upgraded component here. This is actually a pretty decent derailleur. Normally, derailleurs don't matter too much which one you have. If you have a hub motor, it's just not super critical, but having this upgraded compared to like a Shimano tourney is nice. It does make it shift more smoothly. And again, because it came, you know, tuned from the factory, the derailleur it's pretty much spot on. Like, there's no adjustments that need to be made. Up here on the right side of the handlebars, we've got the Shimano trigger shifters, so 7-speed, you know, shifts nicely. The top speed on this, again, remember, is 25 miles per hour, but with this, with a gearing setup, you kind of start hitting that max cadence around 20 miles an hour or so. You can pedal faster, absolutely, but you kind of hit like, I don't know, like 80, 90 RPM, somewhere around there. I think it's like around 22 miles an hour. So you might want to, maybe if you're gonna be riding this thing at top speed, you might want to consider, you know, swapping out one of these rear cassettes here and just kind of boosting the gearing so you can actually pedal a little bit faster. Do you need it? Absolutely not. You can ride this thing like a moped, no problem at all. You can just hit the throttle once you're going past 22 miles per hour, and you can hit the top speed 25 really easily. You'll see this does have an aluminum bash guard right here. Protects the front chainring. You don't really need this for this bike since it's not really an off-road bike, but if you are hopping off a curb or something and you do get a strike on this, it's gonna hit this chainring guard instead of the chainring. So if you hit a curb or something, you're hopping off a curb, whatever, you're not gonna damage the teeth, or you're much less likely to damage the teeth in the front chainring. So it is nice to have, even though you don't really need it, but it looks good too. Also, it does help protect the chain from actually popping off towards the outside, so that's a bonus right there as well. In total, this bike, the RACER, weighs about 63 pounds, and the frame is made of 6061 aluminum alloy. 63 pounds is actually not that bad. It's a little bit heavier than the average electric bike, but given how big this thing is, it's actually lighter than I expected. So it's kind of a nice surprise because a lot of these big cruisers like this, they weigh anywhere from like, upwards of like 80 pounds, man. They get really, really heavy, really, really fast. Not the case with this bike, and it's kind of a nice surprise because if you are carrying this thing around, if you have to go upstairs or something, 63 pounds, not the worst at all. You'll notice it does have front suspension as well. This kind of there's a dual fork system right here. Spring suspension in the front. These do really, really good at absorbing single shock. So if you've got like a big crack in the sidewalk, you go over that. I mean, it really mitigates that. Not the best for like, bad terrain. It's not gonna smooth out like really bad terrain, but single hits, yeah, that works well. There's also springs here in the back underneath the seat. Also helps smooth out the ride. And with the tires here, I mean, these are basically fat tires. They're about 3 inches wide, and they do have a considerable amount of air volume, and these do also add to the suspension quality of the bike. There's enough air in here to help make it a cushier ride. So overall, with the tires and with that little front suspension and the rear suspension, it's actually it's a pretty smooth city ride. And again, that's what this is geared for. This is not really an off-road bike at all. I wouldn't even take this on trails. This is a pavement pounder. This is a road warrior. That's what this bike is made for. It does have a front headlight as well, and it's gorgeous. It's just a piece of work here. This thing is really, really sweet. What I like about this front headlight is it's actually bright enough. I'll turn it on here in a minute when we hit the display, but this front headlight is pretty bright. I think you could actually see the trail if you're riding at night with this headlight. Also, of course, it does increase visibility, which is nice, so it's a little bit safer to ride at night, but nice. I like to see this because a lot of times electric bikes, they just don't have very powerful front headlights. They're just there for visibility, not for, so that you can actually really see, if that makes sense. So, this one though, it's pretty bright. No lights in the back, which was surprising. I kind of figured there would be a tail light to match, but as you can see, nothing in the back here, just kind of minimal. And that's really what this bike is all about, I feel like, is kind of that minimal design. Like I mentioned earlier, it feels like a bobber style. And the old bobber motorcycles, the whole point is they would strip all the fairings. They'd strip typically the rear fender. They'd cut it real short, just make it real minimal. They would have the saddle like that instead of like the banana seat for like motorcycles. And that's what this feels like. It's kind of weird to ride this thing like on the side of the road. People look at it like, I think they think it's a motorcycle at first. The handlebars are also kind of a nice touch here on this bike. They are, as you can see, they kind of dip down and then they kind of swing back a little bit. So it's a narrow grip, but it's still comfortable, and honestly, it looks really cool. You can see you've got a couple spacers there on the head, so if you wanted to adjust that, you could do that as well. You could raise it, you could add some more, or you could just lower it, whatever you wanted to do. But for me, this is fine the way it is. Quick release on the saddle so I can adjust the seat height on the fly. Easy stuff there. Yeah, all right, let's dive into the display real quick. All right, so for the display, it's gonna be a long press of a power button, which is right back here on the back side of the display. Hold that down, you'll see it comes to life. Battery indicator on the left-hand side here, 4-bar, not super accurate, but it gives you a good enough idea of how much juice you've got left. Speed right here, pedal assist level, tripometer. If you tap the power button, it'll switch to total or the odometer, and then back to tripometer. Not a lot of information on this, but it gets the job done. And the coolest thing about it, in my opinion, is it's bright enough to see in broad daylight. You can go from 0 all the way up to 5 for pedal assist. If you hold the plus and minus button on this, you'll see it goes into the settings. And if you want to, you can adjust, kilometers or miles per hour. You can adjust the speed, backlight, wheel size, all that stuff. You can adjust that with the display right here. So to get out of that, we'll just hold the plus and minus again. Maybe it's actually hold the back button, the power button. I don't know. Anyways, I held the power button, it turned off. Hold it again, turn it back on. That's how you get in the settings if you do want to change the top speed on this bike right here. Other than that, yeah, man, I think it's just time to go ride this thing some more. All right, I'm gonna show you this bike in action, so here we go. All right, awesome peeps, that is it for the review of the Michael Blast Greaser electric bike right here. In summary, this thing starts for $2,199, $2,199 USD for the 350 watt version, or I think it's $29.99 for the 500 watt version, which comes with an upgraded battery, and that was the model that we reviewed here. Upgraded motor, upgraded battery. Very, very sweet ride. This thing is a head turner. Everywhere that we have ridden on this thing just to get here to film, everybody basically just stops and kind of looks at this thing. It's a really beautiful bike to behold, but honestly, more than that, this thing is just a really fun, enjoyable bike to ride. The elongated wheelbase on this makes it really, really stable, makes it really feel kind of like more of a motorcycle ride. It's just really, really smooth, really comfortable, very stable ride. And you know, with the suspension, it's pretty comfortable, like we talked about. This thing is going to be a good bike for people who first and foremost just want something really fun to ride. It's a fun bike first and foremost. Can you commute with this? Absolutely, you can commute with it. You get, you know, a decent pedal stroke out of it. You know, the cadence it's all right. It's got a decent range of 35 miles. You got the 500 watt motor. It's powerful enough. It's got enough range to commute. But again, in my opinion, this thing is just for fun and for turning heads. If you live near a beach or somewhere where you got just beautiful roads, beautiful trails to ride, this is the bike for that, for joyride. This is like having a hot rod, man. You know, you take it out on the weekends, you turn heads, you have fun, you feel the wind in your hair, and you feel good. This bike makes you feel good. It is really, really cool. But yeah, that's about it. Awesome peeps for the review of the Michael Blast Greaser. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please drop a like, drop a sub if you like this channel. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Hope you guys are staying safe out there amidst the COVID-19 coronavirus. It's still going strong. Hopefully you guys are well, taking protective measures, social distancing, wearing your gloves, masks if you got it, if you're in crowds, stuff like that. Just be safe. Want you guys to be well, you know what I'm saying? If you're going out to ride safe. Have an awesome day. Catch you guys next time. Peace.